So let's get started. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction to myself and MedVR, and then turn things over. I'll introduce Martha and our moderator, and her lead the event. The MedVR spun out of the MIT Media Lab, where we ran extremely large-scale hackathons, 5 days, 500 people, in the area of XR. What we did a number of things well, but what we really wanted to do was applied XR, and that was to create companies and prototypes and products based upon our work. Hence, we changed our positioning. We're focused now on the medical field and medical XR. The boot camp will bring together people from medical community as well as the technical community, fill in both in what they individually don't know, coming from their different backgrounds, and unify the experience with interdisciplinary education and how to operate on an interdisciplinary team. We'll open an accelerator, probably in the Longwood area of Boston, but perhaps in the North Station area, where for the top projects that come through, we'll continue in development at the accelerator, and it will also be open to applications. Applications of teams that are operating on already. We have a number of partnerships with Mass General Brigham, Boston Children's, University Hospital Heidelberg, that'll provide the expertise on how to choose those. So with that said, I'm really excited about this talk because it talks about exactly about what we do, which is applied medical XR. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing and turn things over to Martha Levine. She's a nurse educator, VR simulationist, and a subject matter expert. She is a nursing educator with Health Scholars, and agreed to moderate because, again, she's a subject matter expert, which is what always makes these talks better. There will be a question and answer period at the end of the
just swap screens real quick.
The talk. And you'll notice that there's a Q&A down at the bottom of your screen, a Q&A chat. Please enter your questions there so that we can curate the questions and present them. So on that note, it's up to you, Martha.
All right. Hi, my name's Martha Levine. I have a PhD in nursing, and I work with a VR company developing applications to do education for clinical providers. My specialty is largely in OB, so this is fascinating. I, of course, have a lot of experience with anesthesia, so I'm super excited to hear Dr. Greta Mitzova-Vladinov and Douglas Fajaro. Greta is an associate professor of clinical nursing and health studies and the program director for nurse anesthesia at the University of Miami. And Douglas is the CEO of Xennial Digital. And they're going to talk to us today about their journey and trying to develop a medical XR environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marta, for the intro. So I'll start sharing my screen. So let me know when you guys are seeing my screen. Is my screen being seen?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, so today, you know, I'm again honored to be sharing this conversation with Greta, with Marta, and Steven and the team, and Yolanda. And our goal today is to basically give you a little bit of background on the work that we, on the collaboration that we have with the University of Miami, working very closely with Greta in terms of how she's pushing the boundaries of VR into the School of Nursing and Health Sciences at the University of Miami. So just to give you a little bit of background on us, we're a company based out of Miami. Have a team now that's a growing team. We're about 40 people now, so it's a nice sized team. We're developing quite a bit of work in different areas of XR, but there is a huge focus in the healthcare area, and that's why we're here today. And the interesting thing, even though AR has a lot of attention from different perspectives, most of the healthcare opportunities and healthcare projects that we're undertaking, all of those projects actually are being developed and designed for virtual reality devices. And as I mentioned, our collaboration with the University of Miami started about 2 years ago, and Greta will take you through that journey in a second. But I think it's interesting to see how companies like those that are you know, where our expertise is in actually building technology, XR technology, more and more rely on subject matter experts to actually execute on projects that actually have a lot of value and bring meaningful experiences to the end users. In this case, the students at the University of Miami. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Greta so she can talk about you know, how things have been have evolved from the beginning at University of Miami. So Greta, please.
Thank you, Douglas. First, thank you also to Steve and Yolanda for the opportunity to present here with you guys today, and to Marta for the nice introductions. We started our road to the medical verse just about a year and a half or so ago, 2 years almost, I would say a year and a half. So how did we start this road? How did we develop the concept? Now, I was working with second-year students, Doctor of Nursing Practice students that are studying anesthesia at University of Miami. And we have quite a bit of simulation experiences there that we built throughout our curriculum. And we have a big simulation hospital, 5-story, with 4 operating rooms, fully functional, with mannequins and everything. However, this is still simulation, and not exactly everything is there as we would like to have in an absolutely true operating room. So we were having a discussion with the students one day. Well, what guides do you need? How do you feel like when you first started your clinical experiences? What else we may need to add in our curriculum so you can feel better prepared? Because everyone was telling us that the initial first couple of months are nerve-wracking, such anxiety-provoking experience, not only the surgical procedures, rendering the patient unconscious, following all these steps, but the ORs are full of equipment, and for every case, there are different things that are needed. And as you can imagine, we cannot possibly have everything in a simulation lab. So we were having this discussion with my students, and what can we do to decrease these anxiety-provoking experiences in the beginning, and what can we do to make them a little bit more familiar with different equipment and different things that are needed. So we started first with just recording a couple of videos of how forced air warming blankets work, or fluid warmer machines, how do you turn them on, how do you prime the tubing for those. And during this time, in 2019, the University of Miami Office of the Provost sent a call for proposals for development and exploring new applications of mixed reality that inspire discovery of research, scholarly, and artistic endeavors, and also how to enhance our students' learning experiences by adding and advancing new pedagogies within the framework of the and Magic Leap strategic collaboration. Because initially, University of Miami started their collaboration with Magic Leap, and their founder was a graduate. So this was kind of natural thing that was developing out of it. So 3 proposals were selected for only $10,000 each. However, it's a great start. And we were lucky to have our first proposal selected at this time, in this very first round. So our proposal was, next slide, Douglas. The initial name of what we came up with was called Escape OR Project, as we were trying to match and have our students kind of complete certain tasks of setting up equipment, and then in order to be able to move on to the next task within the operating room as you're preparing to start an anesthetic case. During this time, we were lucky to have the Institute for Data Science in Computing with University of Miami, who matched us with Douglas' team with Xennial Digital. And how can we start the conversation and develop this into a virtual reality laboratory, really a complete movement out of just watching a video and not having any direct participation for the students. So after our initial project meetings and really deciding exactly what we need, and these needs came from the students' experiences. This is what they wanted first to do and learn. And then talking with the technical experts on the other side, what is possible to do, we came up with deciding that the first 3 modules will be the understanding the use of IV fluid warmers, forced air body warming devices such as bear huggers, and anesthesia depth monitoring equipment. Once we did that, we had to apply, as you can imagine, working with students, you need to have institutional IRB approval. And as much as we want to use them for different experiments, we can't really for ethical and legal standpoints. So we went through the IRB approvals, and the project was launched in the beginning of 2020. So the initial one is we had the students work with Douglas teams and develop a storyboarding and taking videos, breaking them on a lot of multiple little steps, and taking pictures of the equipment that we're gonna need, and going back and forth with the team in order to start developing the wireframes for the actual application development. So our first prototype was augmented reality application, and Douglas team, they put it on the Magic Leap 1 platform. This is the student I was working with, Casey, when she was initially trying, and we did our initial beta testing with the 2nd-year students before we launched it for 1st-year students. And again, after several meetings, initial videos, editing, narrating the scripts, we were able to test it. And we tested it with the 1st-year students, about 35 students or so, right after the pandemic scare was starting to ease. Because at this time, the students were not allowed to go to clinicals. We had all these barriers of launching the project. But luckily enough, because of the simulation hospital, the students were not allowed to go to clinicals, but we were allowed to continue in simulation, and the students were having still in-person simulation activities, although the lectures were virtual, but their experiences continued in the sim lab with very small groups. So the actual testing took almost a couple of months until we had all 30-something students to go through the initial launch of the application. So these are the first 3 modules that were tested, and the students were so happy with the experience. They really enjoyed it, and they thought it was so different, and they felt it was like really a great way to start their clinical, so they don't feel like when they first enter the operating room, they're totally taken out of, their comfort zone, and their anxiety levels, they said, were a lot lower after we discussed. Unfortunately, I didn't think to take additional survey from the students from their experiences after their initial exposure when they went to the OR. But when we were working through this first application, first kind of prototype, as you can see, some of the mean responses, such as the equipment was not as easily selected with some of the clickers, some of the controls of the Magic Leap. And I'm not saying anything bad about Magic Leap. We love working with Magic Leap, and now they have fantastic new headset. However, at the time when we were testing it for our purposes, also some of the visual cues were just not as easy to identify when they were going through the application and the whole experience. So we met back with the Xennial Digital's team, and Tiffany Baker, she's been the project manager working with us super closely, almost like weekly meetings with her at one point. Douglas, they suggested, well, why don't we try to do a full VR experience and add a couple of additional modules at this time, but try this full VR experience on Oculus headsets. The Magic Leap headsets were 3 times more expensive than the Oculus, and also having access, the university had purchased, I believe, 10 of them, and we were able to use 2 of them through the library. But just this whole kind of back and forth and reinstalling the new apps took a while. So we decided to try this suggestion using the Oculus Quest platforms. So with the Oculus Quest platforms, adding 2 additional modules, which were the neuromuscular relaxation module. Believe it or not, this may sound like an easy thing to do, or kind of almost like, oh, okay, you're just checking to see if somebody's paralyzed or not. This module probably was one of the most challenging to develop, because we had to have very true physiologic responses from the mannequin, from our virtual patient, when you're doing stimulation, nerve stimulation, and different nerves on the body that we have access during surgical procedures, such as the facial nerves, the ulnar nerve, and then down on the foot when we don't have access to the head because of head neck procedures. So this was quite challenging, but very, very interesting, going again through the whole development. And those 2 modules we were able to test now in the spring semester of 2022, because end of 21, we were doing the initial testing with the Magic Leap goggles, and then we transitioned this whole environment and did the full testing January, February of this year. So here are some of the responses we got. I had 40 first-year students. We did the beta testing again with the second-year students. I had 2 new students that I was working with, and they were doing the initial orientation to the goggles, what to expect for the students when we started this new testing phase. We had about 14 students that were male, and how many were about 26 females. So the students strongly agreed, or somewhat agreed. As you can see, almost 96% of the students found that the Oculus VR goggles this time and the controls were user-friendly, The instructions and the sequence of the actions really helped them understand how to use the equipment. Only one student kind of disagreed with this, or neither agreed or disagreed, but no one strongly disagreed or not agreeing with this experience. Now, the environment they found to be very easy to orient themselves and realistic to carry the necessary actions. As you can see, again, 99, almost 100% of the students loved it. They either strongly agree or somewhat disagree. And again, here it took a little bit more orientation when we were showing the students how to, for example, people that are not gamers like me, it was not in our generation when we were growing up, but much more so intuitive to younger students that were they were doing games before in their houses, or now that were actually trying to orient themselves in the virtual environment. Even just myself positioning, one day I was like trying to drag the patient when we were testing the lab and move the patient from one side of the room to the other side of the room. So I was calling the team. It was like later in the evening. I'm like, Tiffany, something is wrong here with this application. I can't get behind the patient's head to try to intubate him. So she started laughing. And then I had my 14-year-old daughter at home. She's like, Mom, that's not how you move in virtual environment. You just point where you need to go. I'm like, good to know. So next time we want to make sure that we really truly orient our students. I mean, not next time, but when we launch the testing, that this is a piece of information that we need to show them how to do and what to do with it. So once we had a very short, literally 5-minute orientation, because it was the whole application is so intuitive and easy to use. So once we showed the students, then we were getting all these results. So one important thing is when we were, as faculty in academia, we're also interested in what are some of the physical effects of the virtual environments on learners. Because there's some publications, and I did have experience before with using Magic Leap goggles, teaching how to intubate students by being directly visualizing with the goggles what exactly they're seeing in order for me to give them instructions how to proceed with the next steps. So some of the students were complaining of being dizzy or something. So we decided to use this scale that is actually published and used for quite a few of the virtual application developments, and to assess if anybody had any kind of physical effects, such as nausea, stomachache. Only 2 students, one female, one male, complained of those. The problem here is we did not differentiate if the same 2 students, or let's say 3 students, experienced more than one effect. So this will be the next thing that I would like to dissect a little further when we're looking at the data as we're preparing to publish this. As you can see, majority of them, 23 of the students, did not experience any side effects. 3 of them complained they were slightly disoriented, hot, warm. This could be just the temperature in the room also, and I'll show you a picture afterwards what we mean by that. 7 of them complained of blurred vision, which is another, and this was the most common side effect that they developed, not side effect, but more kind of an inconvenience, we would say. And this is easy to fix as adjusting to the actual Oculus set to individual eyes. So this is one thing that we probably failed to explain to the students. So most common thing that we experienced was blurred vision, and everybody else was pretty happy with what they, how the whole experience went. So this is something for us to keep in mind also if you guys are planning to use Oculus headsets, to explain to the users before the beginning of the application some of those things, how to use and navigate it. Would you recommend the VR environment to other learners as part of their simulation education? All unanimously strongly agreed that they would like to recommend this, and multiple students afterwards came asking if we can continue using it, if we can have more. Everybody wants the experience, they want to have more, they want to have different things that they want to learn. And they were really happy with how this whole experience went. So again, when we were asking for some additional comments and feedback about application, just free writing text, they loved it, very good experience. Again, the blurriness here that somebody mentioned, they want to have anesthesia checkoff. So this is the whole process of induction of anesthesia, administering, placing all the monitors in the operating room, oxygenation, all of these things, administering the medications and going through even the next process, which will be emergence from anesthesia. So again, they want to have more, they want to do a few extra things here, not just few, but like a lot. Great opportunity, had a blast, awesome. And this is the new generation of learners that we have now in higher education that are ready to move away, less time spent reading the books and more time doing and being immersive in their experiences and learning things as they go throughout those immersive simulated experiences. So again, we're supposed to be testing it with only 2 students at a time. I would say 20 minutes later after we started, or 30 minutes later, I'm coming back in the room to see how is it going. And we had like already 8 students in the room. So they all want to do that and they were all interested. So some people that are really not sure, about the mix of the audience, and we'll hear it afterwards during the questions and answers. But one thing interesting here is we were able to display what the students are seeing on the goggles to a big screen monitor that we have in the sim lab. And this is just the debriefing room. This is not the ORs. And we were able to navigate them when they see them being stuck somewhere. We can actually provide feedback. We can assess their progress during their movement through the different modules. And while some are waiting for for the next set of goggles to be available, they were getting familiar with this whole process. So why are we so happy of the turnout of this project? And how did we decide that this is something for sure that we want to keep in our curriculum? 2 years in a row now, we've been using it. Students are having great experiences. And really, it started with the student-generated experiences. With their, they were researching what else is available. How can we improve the pedagogical the pedagogical approach to teach new, unfamiliar, anxiety-provoking skills and information to new learners. So they were coming with also the ideas about the actual project. They were part of the whole development of the project and taking the videos, knowing exactly what needs to be said at what point in order for them to understand the steps of the process. So having those discussion-based classroom experiences that we can have a full debriefing process right at the end of their experience, because simulation has debriefing as one of the most important parts of learning in simulation is after the experience to sit and share how do you feel? What did you learn from it? Where do you see room for improvement? What did you do well? So these kind of things that we had afterwards, the sit and talk and full debriefing with our students. And also, again, having the student-faculty partnerships to design, to be partners, true partners here in the design of those applications. So I've been working with 2 students each year, 2 different students. Now from the previous year, we have like for their scholarly doctoral projects, they wanted to continue building. One of the students right now that I'm working with, they wanted to do a one lung ventilation module. They found this whole concept and, going through the skills quite challenging sometimes, as any of you, if any of you is in anesthesia and has worked with some of this equipment, quite expensive double lumen tubes or bronchial blockers, for example, to keep stocked and available. So we were able to, now with Douglas' team, they're so generous with their time and patient with us, but working through these experiences and getting the students also, these ideas of how to develop these. Because part of it is what we were talking about. How do you come up with afterwards ideas that will be licensed products? How do you move more into the business side of it? So I'm going to give it now to Douglas to describe his idea here and how it came to fruition.
Thank you, Greta. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think one of the key things as we've been developing these simulation labs was to think bigger. And I think all of the work that we've been doing for the last 1.5 to 2 years with Greta and her team at has allowed us to think about how do we not only create this kind of like one-off simulation labs, but how do we create a larger strategy or a broader strategy around what these environments need to evolve into. And that's when we earlier this year started thinking about building a full virtual reality medical campus. We're calling this product the Medical Verse because that's a lot of the different conversations we're having. A lot of people understand the term metaverse as these virtual environments, right? So, and this was born really out of understanding what the most pressing challenges are in the area of healthcare. And this is really what we have, been researching, been working with internally and with different schools of medicine, schools of health sciences, and also even talking to large hospital chains like the Cleveland Clinic, right? Where, for example, one of the main things is the physical space is so limited that, as you guys can see, for example, here on the left, in 2019, more than 80,000 applicants were turned away from schools of nursing because there wasn't enough physical space to house them. Also, of course, faculty shortages because as a result of COVID, a lot of those professors that are actually switching to becoming full-time nurses or doctors, and then that has exacerbated the problem because then there is this higher need also for not only for professors, but that's also extending into making it more critical in terms of the available supply of nurses in the market. As you guys can see, this $1 million number comes actually from Indeed.com, where if you search for nursing jobs available, there's over 1 million positions available there. And then the third piece that we discovered that's kind of interesting is that in order for the students to practice real life scenarios, they need patients, right? But it's very difficult for a student to say, bring me a patient that's having a stroke symptom because I need to assess them, or a patient that has diabetes and things like that. So that is also one of the most scarce resources that we found within the areas that we're working with. So our virtual reality medical campus was really created and it's being developed to address these critical gaps. On the left side, of course, the virtual simulation labs virtually allows not to have any physical limitations. We can send the nurse students, postgrads, undergrads with their headsets home with a full operating room or a full virtual campus in their headsets and be able to practice without limits, right? The other piece is the fact that now, because we can apply multi-user environments the same way we do in games, where the professor can come into these virtual reality environments and have 3, 4, 5, however many students they want to have within the VR at the same in real time, and then be able also to have more of those sessions without having to prep the sim room, the mannequins, or anything like that. That accelerates and scales the amount of students that can be taught. And then the third piece where we're working is actually in building a large library of virtual patients with different genders, with different ethnicities, with different age ranges that have pre-configured medical conditions so that the nurses can train in a VR environment against scenarios that they will actually face when they go into the workforce. So then our strategy is exactly that, which is focus on staff shortages, work with subject matter experts like Greta and her team to ensure that everything that we're building is validated, that it actually aligns to curriculum, aligns to those learning objectives and the skills that the nurses need to learn. And then the other interesting thing is that we have large medical companies, equipment companies that want to now also look at how they can deliver their equipment and their products through virtual reality for the doctors, for the institutions that are going to be using this equipment to be able to actually kind of like do an onboarding or work with this equipment or get used to the equipment before they actually get the physical piece. So that's an interesting thing that's evolving in conversations we're having. And then I'll throw this back to you, Greg. I know that we have, about 15 minutes left in the conversation. So I think we'll want to go through these slides so we can leave about 10 minutes for QA at least.
Yes, thank you, Douglas. So as part of the simulation chair, being chair of the simulation subcommittee for the American Association of Nurse Anesthetists, we did conduct a survey to the nurse anesthesia programs, and we had responses from 38 states of 58 programs. There are a total of 126 nurse anesthesia programs in the country. And as you can see, and that was exactly, put it on the mark there, is the lack of insufficient number of faculty is predominantly the predominant problem for conducting simulation in a lot of the programs. 50% of them actually. Inadequate funding. Some of our high fidelity mannequins are as like the HPS mannequins, they're like $200,000. Not too many schools have money to buy a few of those or for maintenance cost. And then it goes into support personnel and simulation space, which is all challenging, and also training how the faculty, how to use all of this equipment in order to conduct simulations that are conducive for learning. So some of those blocks to traditional simulation that we're describing here, we feel they could be solved with having a lot of the skills, the steps to the skills to be solved with virtual simulation, because lab availability, we talked about it, the cost, the complexity of constantly changing environments and treatment options, it's pretty high. The platform that we're delivering from our side, it's the VR Medical Campus that has become actually our content distribution platform. The reason why we mentioned here it's secure is because we usually authenticate anybody that's coming into this platform so that we can deploy only the content that they have available. Of course, the VR simulation labs, we continue to develop more, but we also behind all of these have a full or a comprehensive XR analytics platform where we can capture every single interaction, assessments, anything that we can want to capture from a metrics perspective. We can do so here and also have reporting capabilities as well. And in the case that is necessary, we can also do full integrations with the learning management systems from the schools to deliver all the reports and all the metrics into a single environment. So what we want to do here, let me switch here applications. I want to show you a little video of the actual environment. So this is what this medical verse environment
that's being developed is going to look like. This is the first area is going to have multi-user capabilities. As I mentioned, our goal here would be to create an environment where different people from different countries or specialties come and collaborate. This is an example of the incubation lab. As you guys can see here, it has a lot of visual cues, but also within the experiences, we put a lot of audio clues as well, or steps to guide the students as they are learning these procedures in order to be as accurate as possible. Any type of screens and things like that, we make them available right in front of them, so they don't have to be looking all over the place. And this is actually as Greta was mentioning, I mean, she showed a picture here, but this is the actual students actually, using these environments to learn specific skills. So the beauty about this is, as Greta was mentioning, it's just the scalability. I mean, you're in a debriefing room. She had up to 8 students, which each of them is actually getting a chance to perform the procedure instead of having to wait in a physical simulation room. So that's just a little taste of that. So let me go back here to the presentation. So here, so what's next? So next we have a product roadmap plan. The next set of experiences that we're actually building, we're focusing more on the basic skills with conversations we're having with a lot of different schools of or schools of medicine. Basic skills like IV, things around phlebotomy are things that are being asked of us. Critical care management in terms of ventilation, critical medical emergency scenarios like stroke assessment, opioid treatment, and overdose treatments. Those kinds of things are the ones that are going to be developed in the next few months. In terms of also how we're approaching, as I mentioned, our strategies to build the largest library of virtual patients, different ethnicities. Diversity is a key thing, different body types, different conditions. So this is a key strategic piece for us. We're also started looking at the different haptic technologies that are coming up. They're still in the very early stages, but of course, tactile experiences will play a huge part when it comes to training in clinical environments. For resistance, for weight, for a lot of different feedback things that we want to measure. 5G is also going to play a key piece for us because we want to create more real-time multi-user environments for the type of applications or solutions that we're building. And then I'll throw it back to you to complete the presentation, Greta, before we throw it back for questions.
Thank you, Douglas. So here what we have is really our experience and what we think in order for anyone to build a successful road to either developing and integrating or using already developed products and integrating them within their curriculum is you need to have internal partners on your academic level or healthcare level, institutional level. Because if you don't have those key partners at institutional level, it's going to be hard to have the financial support for the equipment, for purchasing some of the applications, and also people that are really interested and enthusiastic of experimenting with new technologies, to integrate them truly within either the curriculum or even in clinical practice for refreshment of skills for already practicing clinicians when they're recertifying and things like that in their specialties, faculty mentors, again, student projects and student feedback and students' ideas are really key for us to see what is next on the horizon for you and for us, of course. Industry partners such as Douglas company and also hardware companies all of these kind of need to be really lined up at one point in order to have this successful implementation, to lead to increased confidence in the students, to build their CVs, to build their true skills of what higher education is about. Not just about a paper that you kind of hang somewhere on a wall, but something that they use and they could definitely implement and feel proud of, and also go on and license their own products, license, for all kinds of uses. We're just giving an example here for the medical kind of part of life, but this could be used for practically in anything, any aspect of life and teaching and learning. So that's from us. Thank you, guys.
So I'll stop my share, Martha, and then maybe we can go into some QA.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give people a moment to get into the QA and see if they have any questions. In the meantime, I would like to ask you all, what institutional infrastructure do you need to really to support a very good, successful VR program?
Maybe I could start with the University of Miami. When we started initially, it was just building those partnerships. And this was done at a high level within the university. And then they were able to trickle down and bring the faculty, bring the students on board. But also they did develop individual XR initiative, which kind of took over after that. And the XR initiative now reaches out to students. Every year we have like student projects that are being sponsored. Two of my students already had their project sponsored. They match them with either the Innovate team, with other students from the College of Engineering that could help them build some of those applications. Again, we're starting at a very small scale, but these are the ideas that we built. Also, we had donation, like nice grants that gave us the opportunity to buy the headsets. So now within our school, we have our own 10 Oculus headsets. So this is kind of how we started it.
And just to add to what Greta is mentioning also, I think the beauty about working with the students is that they're also taking on some projects that they can only get to a certain point. And by us being able to partner with the students, we can actually bring them to the level where they can become a product that then can be commercialized. And I think the beauty about that is giving the students that piece that can go in the resumes is really important, because they're really starting to think about how they can actually use their knowledge, what they're learning, and actually bring it out into the market to commercialize something that can help other students in other institutions.
So in a way, the students are almost having like a mentorship in how to do this sort of work, that mentoring them in how to get to that journey from an idea to actual fruition of the project. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
There is a question here. It says, I'm an AR VR dev, more in 3D, and former hospital patient, London-based. I have created AR VR projects for medical healthcare benefits, VR simulations, and AR anatomy. Finding a role job in this sector is difficult. Do you have any advice on this? Contacts? Is that XR in healthcare, or is in its infancy? So do you either need a PhD or 10 years of experience in this specialized niche field? Thank you for the discussion.
I'll take on that one. I think if you already have the basis of VR or AR development, you're already either using, the main engines like Unity and Unreal. I think if you like this space of healthcare, you have to find companies that are, that are going into that field. For example, we're going to that field. The company that Martha is advising for Health Scholar also has that field. There is other companies in Canada. There is another company, I don't remember right now their exact name, but there is a few companies that are going to healthcare field. The good thing is, I think it's so green field right now. There is so much opportunity for everybody that we really we don't kind of compete against anybody, and I don't think you guys do either, right, Marta? Because there is everybody trying to figure out what the right areas are to develop content into. But I would say just, there is enough on Google probably right now that you can find VR AR companies focused on healthcare, and you'll probably find quite a few there that are looking for talent that have some base skills in these technologies.
Awesome. Thank you, Douglas. That was very helpful. Yeah. Another question from Angela. What sort of analytics are you looking at when you're doing these simulations?
So I'll take a little bit on that, and I'll let Greta also add a little bit. So what we're looking at is, for example, we implement these environments in 3 different sets of modules of the same thing. So we have kind of like a guided mode so that people can practice, but in a very step-by-step procedure. So the goal there is knowledge retention. The second piece is practice. Like I can assign a nurse a task and they have to do it, but there is no risk of them failing or not. It's just kind of pop-ups, like kind of like quizzes that says you did it correct or incorrect. And then we have the third piece to your question, which is the assessment mode. In the assessment mode, what we're capturing is, are they doing the procedure correctly? Are they using critical thinking? Are they, sometimes we have little questions or things like that they have to answer. So all of the things that we're capturing is around really understanding that the students are learning the skills that they need to learn through these experiences. I don't know if you want to add something else to that, Greta.
Right, and thank you. This one, right now, the way we do assessments and metrics is actually by looking at the clinical evaluations once they start clinicals, because we do have all of those steps, like are they able to set up, are they able to properly monitor and interpret neuromuscular blockade level, are they able to follow the steps for intubation correctly. So we actually get real clinical performance feedback. Right now, we haven't started using the metrics, and we would the next step is testing them with Douglas, but really it's like the students going once through the guided practice mode, then we can evaluate and see how many times it took them, in order they messed up the steps, let's say, or how many times it took them in order to intubate properly or to detect that the tube is in the right place, or if they skipped a step, not listening to the lungs, or things like that. So this will be just those additional metrics that now we are working into incorporating and really deciding which one of those really matters, which one of those, if they're skipped, may hurt the patient or may not. At the end, it all comes to, like, sometimes we do shortcuts, but is there a harm there? So when you're learning skills and the procedural aspect of it, the steps, I think this will become very valuable next thing.
Wonderful. How do you see the role of VR simulation in the healthcare education curriculum? And what do you feel would be useful, the most ideal types of learning scenarios for using this technology?
Right. I'm going to speak for, from anesthesia standpoint first, because that's how we started. And anesthesia is very hands-on profession, and clinical competence is a key here, and clinical knowledge. So how do you build competence, and how do you first practice certain skills? So the learners have, most of our skills are quite complex. So learning, like dissecting the skills, being really immersed into the environment without going to the simulators and before even going to the patients. For us, the procedural skills, the steps of the skill of those procedures are very important, and we see the biggest implementation right here. And then we have certain scenarios that are key scenarios for management under acute situations, like the rare occurrences but high risk of complications, outcomes. Those scenarios that have specific algorithms for treatment, this will be also another one implication of those skills. So again, we're not saying that virtual simulation is gonna take away the practice on an actual simulator or on an actual patient, but we're saying learning the steps of the skills to decrease this steep learning curve that goes in the beginning. So once then you practice the skill, you live and or being evaluated by faculty or in the clinical environment, then knowing already the steps of the skills, knowing what to expect, it decreases this anxiety and increases the first attempt success, let's say for intubation, or dropping the number of attempts for successful performance of procedure. This is our goal, really, not to completely, eradicate mannequins that we've been using since 50s and 60s, but going into and understanding the procedures and learning the steps, we found the best use of it. Also with the AI platforms now that Xennial is proposing of being able to have a conversation, let's say for patient assessment, and the patient to be able to pick up and recognize voice commands and recognize certain questions and to be answering. This is like really, truly what we think will be the movement forward. What we think now it's impossible, practically, people will be using it within the next 5 to 10 years everywhere. So
Exactly.
we're super excited.
Yeah, as the technology evolves, it certainly opens up more doors. Absolutely. That's been my experience also. I need to go in just a second, and we're just a smidge over time. But our presenters have volunteered to stay for a little bit longer and answer further questions. I'm going to turn over the moderation to Stephen, but I did want to address before I pop off that Stephen, we got a question that would be a good one for Stephen about the boot camp. He would love to tell you some more about how you guys can do that. And thank you all so much, Greta and Douglas. It was a delight. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Martha. Really appreciate it. You're on mute, Stephen.
Wait, no, Stephen, you got it.
Yeah, I think that was Sonia that raised the question. The boot camp will be 3 months long, beginning at the end of this year. The cost is has not been determined, but it will be affordable to everybody who's qualified to attend. It's the way we operated before when we were doing reality virtually, and we'll continue that because if you can't build a functionally and socially diverse community after you've built it. You can't go back and fix it. So we want representations of that are both functional in terms of background skills and social, where people come from and who they are and what their races, what their countries of origin are. So it will definitely have a way to do that. I think we're done on the questions. So I'm not seeing any more. Just a couple of quick comments. Firstly, I want to thank Dr. Mitzova-Vladinov and Douglas Fajaro for joining us today. It was a wonderful talk about how you actually how you actually implement useful technology with XR in the education field, and we'll see a whole lot more about that. I put a link to our Slack channel in the chat. Please join it. We'll be sure to announce all future talks there. We have we're going to take August off because people tend to take a lot of vacations then, and we'll get started again on September 7th. This is still a working title from MediView, delivering products that customers can't live without, the wisdom in the voice of the customer. We have Mina Fahim, who is the CEO of MediView, who will be giving the talk. They are an imaging guidance system for interventional procedures, which Mina was very involved in the development of, as well as the development of the company. Mina's talk will be really interesting because it's a lot like this one in some ways. He's developed that skill previously at Medtronic as to how to talk to clinicians and how to work with patients. Most of this work was done in conjunction with the Cleveland Clinic, and it'll be it will be published on our website in the next couple of days, and we'll be sending it out an email. On that note, want to thank our speakers again, and thank everybody for joining us. And we'll see you in September. Take care.
Yeah.